Okay, so welcome to the British Motorcycling Group podcast. I'm your host, Ian Richardson, and you're listening to what is probably the best motorcycling podcast in the world. Today, I'm thrilled to introduce Henry Manuel, who is joining us all the way from Lima in Peru. So, Henry, what brings you to Lima in Peru?
Hi, Ian. Yeah, thanks very much. I don't live here. That's important to say. I am British myself from Oxford,
Yeah,
but I am on a motorcycle traveling adventure right now. I arrived in Lima just a few days ago. I'm 2 months into my trip and having a great time so far.
fantastic. So you're from Oxfordshire. What brought you to? If you're 2 months in, is that how long it took to get from Oxfordshire, or did you set off from somewhere else?
Simple, yeah. I'm from Oxford, but I left the UK about 13 years ago now. I'm a
Okay,
primary school teacher, but I've started working in international schools in various countries.
right.
And for the last 6 years, I was living in Sao Paulo, Brazil. So that's where I started my trip 2 months ago from Sao Paulo. Made my way through the corner of Brazil, through Bolivia, a little bit of Chile, and now in Peru for the last 3 weeks.
Wow, fantastic. That explains how in 6 to 8 weeks you've got there. I thought that was quick. That was pretty quick.
That would be impressive otherwise, yeah. I guess I could have shipped it over, as a lot of
Yeah.
people do actually. I do see a fair few British bikes. There beside the hostel I am a few days ago. So there are a fair few people who ship things over, but no, my bike is a Brazilian bought bike, yeah.
It's a great feeling, though, that isn't it? Wherever you are, you see that yellow number plate because we're quite unique. The Dutch have yellow number plates, and us. So you see that yellow number plate on the back.
Uh, Absolutely, yeah. It's slightly comforting sometimes when you're in the middle of nowhere
That's
and you pull
true.
up to a random petrol station in the middle of nowhere, and then hang on a minute, or even sometimes there's a German or a Belgian car was nearby once, and even that's kind of
Yeah, near enough geographically to be comforted.
yeah,
Oh, it's
in
Europe.
some kind of way.
It's funny. I've found myself waiting by bikes and even cars in the past until they come out. They've gone in to pay for the fuel, or then they come out. And they're like, "Hey, okay," and I said,
Oh, absolutely,
"Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, fine,
absolutely,
thanks. I
yeah,
just saw you're from England. Oh, wow, yeah. Where are you from?
yeah.
Off we go. Yeah, it's great. Wow. So, you're a primary school teacher. You've been out to the UK for 13 years ish, in Sao Paulo. And is that where you've began to ride bikes, or did you begin to ride bikes when you were back in the UK? What's your story?
No, this is the bike I have now that I bought 5-ish years ago in Sao Paulo is the first motorbike I've had.
Wow.
Um, so I only passed my test. Um, yeah, it was 5 years ago, 2019, that I passed it.
In Brazil.
In Well, this was a bit exciting. My plan was, knowing what Brazil is like. I thought and not speaking Portuguese very well at that point because I'd only been there for 1 year. I thought I need to get it done. I need to do my test in England in English. Really learn. I know the roads in England as well, so I need to do my test there. And then I knew that I could transfer my British license to a Brazilian one
Mm.
because I had done that with my car license almost as soon as I got to Brazil. So I did my UK test near Oxford. It was really great. I really liked the instruction that I got. I really felt like I was going to be safe on the road. Then I went back to Brazil to start the new school year. Asked if I could transfer my now motorcycle license to my Brazilian license, and they said, "Oh no, you can't do that. You've already transferred a license, so you can't now transfer and add something." It
You've
was the
got to
adding that's the
add that
problem.
part in Brazil.
So I had to then do my whole motorcycle test in Brazil as well, which is quite different from the UK one. The UK one is incredibly thorough. You're taken out on the road. You're in the car park. You're out on the
Mod
road.
1 and then Mod 2 out there. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. Very, very rigorous,
Yeah.
and you learn so much from it. I really felt like I learned a lot. The Brazilian one is slightly different. You're just in a car park, and the test is to drive in a car park on a painted track. It's about a meter wide, maybe, that you have to go around. There's a figure of eight. You have to drive around a couple of little corners. It's a meter wide, so it's not
Yeah.
simple, but it's simple.
Simpler.
On a little, yeah, on a little 125, little 125 Honda.
That they
There's one
provide.
point
That
that
right?
they provide. At
Okay.
one point, you have to stop the bike, and then you start again, and the whole thing lasts about 2.5 minutes. There are two little caveats. You must never put your right foot down. That's an immediate fail. And you must keep your visor closed at all times. If it's opened, then it's an immediate fail. So really, pretty rigorous that.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's a strange thing, and have your visor closed.
I, I don't
Especially
understand
as
the
from
problem
my
with that.
experience of that country, a lot of people are not going to have one on, or they're going to have it unfastened, just laid on top.
Absolutely, yeah. Or visor open, but there were compulsory lessons, but all the compulsory lessons were driving around that same track as many times as you wanted for 40 minutes.
Or just to
40
get
minutes
used to not
times,
going outside the
yeah,
white painted line.
40 minutes times 10 lessons, I think it was. But I'd already passed my test in England, right? So I could drive a bike. Some people will need to get used to driving a bike, I
Yeah,
guess,
fair
but
enough.
I could already do that. So I started giving myself little tests whilst doing these lessons. So one day I tried to do it as slow as possible. One day I tried to do it as fast as possible. Never putting my right foot down as well, of course. But yeah, it's kind of farcical, really. You pass this little test, and then you can drive any bike you want. Um, Different, from the UK, like you said about Mod 1 and Mod 2.
Yeah,
You have to drive around a little track on a 125, and then the next day you can buy a
yeah.
Fireblade or whatever you
10,000 or
want.
something. Fire blade, yeah.
Yeah. You don't even drive on the road. It's crazy. It's crazy.
So,
So I was very happy that I'd done the UK license before, so I could actually learn how to be safe on a bike on the roads.
yeah. Yes. Well, it's astonishing. I mean, I hear about all sorts of different countries, and I know in the US, for a first world country, there is a massive variation of, you know, getting a license for your bike or getting that
Uh-huh.
what they call endorsement can be very straightforward, very simple.
Right. Well,
Some states you can just buy one and ride it and kill yourself, as they do.
I prefer not to take that option myself.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I'm glad you did it that way. And it reminds me, it's a shame that you had to do that because you expected to be able to swap it over. But what I have had with speaking to lots of people over the years is the DVLA, when they tried to issue the card license here, which they hoped, because everybody rides or drives a car, would end up being some sort of ID card. I think I think
Right.
because there's such a furore about having ID cards in the UK. They don't understand that in the rest of the world everyone has them.
Yeah.
They wanted to get rid of the paper license, and I had a paper license, and so did so many people. But in I don't know. I'm going to say in the early 2000s, late 90s, when people handed them in, sent them off to DVLA to have their card license given, many
Mhm.
people had certain endorsements missed off it. So, for example,
Right.
thousands of people, they got the license back and they no longer had motorcycle entitlement. And there was
Oh,
like,
right. Oh, I see. That had disappeared. Wow.
so they rang them and they said, "Oh, we don't keep a hard copy. It's someone manually puts it in to the system,
And then that's it.
and then we shred it. You see, for like, you know,
Mm.
and they were like, "Well, I passed my test in 1980 or whatever."
Yeah.
You know, and it's not on there. Sorry, if you can't provide evidence of it. And they're like,
So then they had to do the test again.
hundreds of people had to do the bike test again. Of course, when they
Wow.
first took the bike test, it was a bit like ride round there, come back, and when I step out with this clipboard, you've got to stop.
Yeah.
And then they came back to, doing the, um,
Like you said, the mod 1 and mod 2 and everything.
yeah,
Yeah.
after they'd done the online one where you had to go to a center and do the,
Uh-uh.
I forgot what that's called, the hazard perception and all that. Had to
Right.
pass that. And of course, there was because there was hundreds all of a sudden wanting to do the bike test, which is not normal, on top of everything else. There was like a year's waiting list to get a bike test.
Oh, right. My word.
Awful
Right.
mess about. So, although it's a bit of a shame you had to ride round a figure of 8, it's a lot less trouble than that by the sound of it.
No, it wasn't so bad. It wasn't so bad.
Brilliant.
And in a way, actually, it was kind of good to have extra practice on a bike because although I passed my mod 1, mod 2, so then suddenly you've got a bike and you're driving around. Yeah, I knew what to do technically and stuff, but I didn't have the experience. So actually, in a way, having that extra 10 lessons or whatever it was of just practicing was actually quite good for sort of muscle memory, get really remembering those things before I bought my first bike.
Right. And what's the right foot bit? What about the left? Could you put your left foot down all the way around if you wanted?
You just that's a good point. Maybe you could do. I didn't argue. Unfortunately, as I said, my Portuguese was not good. After what living there for just 1 year, so
Yeah.
I wasn't able to question the instructions. Whatever, okay, but yeah, no right foot down. Okay,
Brilliant.
whatever.
And what bike did you buy 5 years ago? What's that bike you've got?
I've got a Suzuki V-Strom 650 XT, the 2016, so just before the last refit of it, the last I think remodeling of it.
Right.
And yeah, it's been absolutely wonderful. That's the bike I've still got. I bought it with 17,000 kilometers on it.
Right.
I guess at that point it was just a couple of years old. Now it's got 72,000, and I'm just started on this big trip. But it's been really great. I think as a first ever bike, but also a bike that I knew I was going to be taking on big trips. It's been absolutely perfect. I wouldn't have been able to cope with a liter bike at that point.
Yeah.
Although that would have been good for future trips. But this bike has been wonderful for fitting out with all the boxes and stuff, carrying plenty of luggage, and great for the long highways that are in Brazil, it being a big country,
Yeah.
but also a little bit of off-road stuff. Not gone crazy with it off-road, but yeah, it's been capable. I've gone through a river or two. It's been good.
Great. And have you? I mean, that first of all, I think that's a perfect middleweight bike to do this type of thing on, and very popular for this type of a journey as well. Of course, being from a major manufacturer, spare parts are going to be available-ish all over the world. Even if you have to ship them in, there will be main dealers in cities, I guess, for Suzuki.
That was part of my thinking as well. Partly, partly the spares, but also partly kind of like the simplicity of the bike as well.
Yes.
It's so if something went wrong in the middle of nowhere and there's no parts, then can we botch something together to get me to somewhere? I'm in Lima now, in the capital of Peru, and there's a Suzuki dealer. My bike is at the mechanic right now, actually.
Oh, really?
just have just
Sorry, sorry about that. Yeah, I bought it because it's so reliable, etc. And it's being fixed at the moment.
it's it's just having a little service,
Oh,
just a little bit of TLC to
yeah,
keep me going.
great idea when you get to a
Um,
big city near the beginning of
oh,
the trip.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely. I had a big service from the dealer that I bought it in 8,000 kilometers ago when I set off, but I've already gone through some pretty harsh environments in the last 8,000 kilometers. So I really wanted to make sure that it got a good service here
yeah.
before I again head off into the mountains next week. Um, More, yeah, rough roads, and I don't know what else is going to be there, but
Well, water and dust are the killers of bikes, aren't they? Let's be honest.
yeah, yeah. I,
Bearings and things.
I, I've already gone through a fair bit of that, and across the salt flats in Bolivia as well. So I got a fair bit of salt picking up into various parts. So it definitely needed to be. I just have a little bits and pieces looked after.
Yeah.
When they got the air filter out, there was a feather inside there. So I mean, in one way, you could say that the air filter is doing its job, keeping the
Well,
air filter out of anything else. But I mean, how a feather got inside there, I don't know. But
fantastic. You didn't
yeah,
run over any birds or anything. You don't remember hitting any birds.
not that I remember.
Well, when I'm sure you'll speak about your videos that you've got, and you're going to be posting
Sure.
the trip, aren't you? On YouTube, etc. Which we'll talk about a bit later, and you'll be able to give people links to it. I think I've lost sync. I've gone out to sync a little bit. Um,
A
but
little bit. Sure.
yeah, oh, it'll come back. It's probably because of the vast distance between us, and the internet being what it is. I remember whilst trying to visualize your route, although it's not the same route exactly, I'd got in my mind when the latest Ewan McGregor and Charlie Broad
Mm,
trip on the electric bikes, doing
yeah.
that coming up through South America and through into Peru and Bolivia and Peru. So whilst I've got a visualization of what you've been doing through your videos that I looked at, because it's only right that I did when I knew that we were going to be talking on here. And recently, against my Yorkshire heritage, I spent money to subscribe to Apple TV to
Oh
watch
my word.
uh,
To watch.
to watch the latest one, because I would never. There's nothing on there I want to watch
Right, right. Except,
apart from Ewan and Charlie. But
uh,
I found myself watching all those right from 2004 with their first ever one,
right, right.
the old BMWs, through to the newer bikes, the
Electric
electrics, one
Harleys.
way up, down, and across. And
Uh,
so I visualized what you were going through, the salt flats they went through, and so what you're talking about, I've got a double view of it, if you like, and it's giving me
mhm.
a focus of what it might have been a bit like.
Well, I don't think I really fully appreciated the size. Um, Before I moved to Brazil and lived and started traveling around, both by motorbike and by plane and other travels, I didn't appreciate the size of South America, the variety of landscape and geography in the whole place. So it's taken a long time to really appreciate it and fully understand certain parts. So yeah, to get an idea of it in some kind of way from Ewan McGregor's trips and stuff, or watching my videos,
Yes.
then yeah, you really started to appreciate it's an incredible continent, and not one I think that we people know so much about. Even Brazil, which is a famous country, and people think of Brazil as beaches, Copacabana Beach, the Amazon, and uh,
Rio kind of,
that
yeah.
Rio maybe. But even Brazil itself has got a crazy variety of landscapes and culture and things going on there. So yeah, it's fascinating to find out more on my trip.
Yeah, I'm sure. And I think certainly for European riders, I think it's
Hmm, hmm.
very little visited, really. I mean, I'm sure that
Yeah,
the North
yeah,
American riders might do it more. You tend to have people do through South and Central America into North America.
uh, for
But
sure.
for us, I think we obviously, geographically, we are a 20-mile ferry ride across from Europe. So we're going to
It
predominantly
makes
going
sense
to do that, aren't they? And then into
for
Asia
sure.
because it's Europe's obviously a little part of Asia really, so it's easier for.
Uh-huh.
So I think people will find this fascinating, especially those who are considering doing it, because for most of us, unlike you, we're going to have to ship our bikes over the other side of
Yeah.
Atlantic first before we do it.
Yeah, there are actually, as I haven't used them, but as I've discovered from meeting other travelers, there are a lot of places that hire out bikes,
Oh, really?
um, and big adventure bikes as well. Obviously, there's some that do smaller bikes for, um, more tough off-road stuff. But there's plenty of ones that do hire out medium-sized, big-sized adventure bikes for um, for longer, month-long trips here and there, Colombia and Peru. And I would say that, yeah, you're right. It's far away, and maybe Europeans don't know so much about South America, but it's not so scary. It's not so dangerous as we hear about all the time. Maybe not quite as safe in some respects, but I haven't had any troubles driving 8,000 kilometers across the whole continent so far. Um, you even language is not an issue. You go walk into a hotel, they know why you're there. There's plenty of hotels that have got um, private car parks as well, so you can easily park your bike there. You go into a restaurant, you can't speak Spanish at all. They know why you're there in the restaurant. You want
Yeah,
some food. So you go to a petrol station. You don't need to
yeah.
speak Spanish to get
Obvious
some
what you want.
petrol. They know why you're there. So I'd really urge more people to come to South America for
Mm.
travels, for motorcycle travel. It's really a very easy, accessible place to come to travel.
Right, fabulous. I mean, I know I spoke to somebody a few weeks ago, and they just when I mentioned about actually riding in Brazil because they'd been to Brazil, but not really.
Mhm.
They said, "Oh, I quite fancy it," but I've just got off YouTube watching this police chase where they chase a bike thief and shoot him in the head. So I've decided not to go. And I went, really?
Right.
Can't make a decision on whether you're going to leave the country based on a video on YouTube. Surely.
Yeah, quite. The scare stories always get the headlines, don't they?
Of course.
And get the clicks on YouTube or whatever. Which video are you going to click on? And I mean, this is a curse of that you as a YouTuber and I will always find. What are people going to click on? If there's a headline saying, police chase shoots someone in the head, people always click that, and then
That's what
that's what's in your mind. Oh, Brazil's
that's what I'm
so
going to do on
dangerous.
ours. On this,
There we go.
that's great. That
Right.
because we can't put boobs on it or anything, which is the other thing
No.
people click on. So
Yeah.
yeah, we're going to have to do that.
So unfortunately, yeah, comfortable drive through Brazil, seeing the beautiful sights that doesn't get so many
No.
headlines. And then what's in people's head? Oh, Brazil's really, really scary and dangerous. And yeah, there are some dangerous places. I lived in Sao Paulo, and there are areas of Sao Paulo that I knew to not go to, or just to be more careful in.
Just like every other
And
city in the world, I guess.
just like every other city, and I could be very, very safe where I was living, as long as I was careful, and that's pretty easy most of the
Yeah,
time.
common sense prevails usually,
For
doesn't it?
sure, for sure.
Great. So when did you, well, more importantly, not when, but what did you do to prepare for this journey? Did you sketch it out on a map? Did you book ahead accommodation, or do you think I'll do it on the hoof? And what about preparing your bike or like packing? What do you decide what to take? That's what people like to hear when they're going to
Right.
inspired by you. Did you just get up one morning and think, you know what, I'm going to go and ride back to the UK and I'm going to do it over a couple of weeks. I'll do it tomorrow. I just need to get some petrol in the morning.
Very simple. Yeah, just jump on the bike and go. I've been planning this for years and years, really. I've done other travels, but like before I had my motorbike in various parts of the world, I drove. I used to live in Kazakhstan, and I'm teaching there as well. And I once drove my car. I bought a car in the UK, and I drove it to Kazakhstan,
Wow.
and then back again. So in that kind of those things that start to give me ideas about what I want to do. I've had in my kind of bucket list ideas of what I want to do to drive around South America on a motorbike. I've had that in my head for 20 years or something like that. So when I moved to Brazil, I already started having the idea that, well, if I'm going to drive around South America on a motorbike, I need to learn to drive a motorbike. I've had little scooter trips and here and there in Asia in particular, but some big scooter trips, but not on the motorbike. So it's been in my mind for a really, really long time. And therefore, when I bought or when I was looking to buy my first bike, what kind of bike it was going to be was already in my mind about being ready for this long trip. We already talked about a little bit that the V-Strom 650 is a pretty good bike to have. And I was lucky I bought one that already had an aftermarket bash plate that seems to be made of the strongest material in the world because I've driven. It's had plenty of bashes and it's kept everything very, very safe.
That's kryptonium. What's that stuff? Kryptonium or something, isn't it?
It must be made of that. It must be made of that. It is. It is incredible. It already had engine guards on it, which also served me well in a crash or two. But we don't need to talk about that just yet. I had to add the racks. I bought new hand guards.
Yeah.
The light protector. Yeah, and then I've had to buy luggage and stuff for it. So in terms of the bike, that's all I've had to do, I think. I put new foot pegs as well because the rubber ones are great for reducing vibration, but as soon as it's a little bit wet or muddy, then they're just no good. So I bought I don't think they're a branded one, just from somewhere from the Brazilian equivalent of eBay or Amazon.
Surely it's Amazon.
No, there's another one that's in South America, Mercado Livre.
Mercado
Livre, free market, literally it means. And that, I got a huge amount of stuff from there. It's a little bit tricky because a lot of things are more expensive in Brazil. Things that are imported to Brazil get a huge tax on them. So I would often wait until I went back to the UK, which I would do once a year.
Yeah.
Buy certain things and then bring it back to Brazil. So
case full of bits.
Yeah. So even my helmet, which I've got a new Shoei helmet, which is about £600 in the UK. If I bought that in Brazil, it would have been 1,000.
Wow!
So it's not a little markup; it's a whole lot.
One then, isn't it?
So all my Revit gear is all from bought in the UK and then brought over. But aftermarket stuff like those foot pegs. They are they're made in Brazil, so they're decent price. And a foot peg. I don't think you can go well. I don't think you need to buy an SW Motec foot peg. The one I bought is absolutely fine.
So they're the serrated ones, are they? The alloy ones?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. Which are definitely better when it's wet and muddy. I can definitely feel the vibrations a whole lot more when I'm 130 kilometers an hour on the highway. But it's definitely worth the payoff, I think,
Yeah.
because you can't be slipping on the pegs for sure.
No. I actually bought, Henry, sorry, which were similar, which were adaptable ones. They had a small Allen key, so you could have the rubber,
right.
could take it off. So I had them on my GS F700 GS BMW, and they were great until you lost one, and then you may as well
right.
can't get
And
the
then, of course not. Of course not. Why would you? That would make sense.
yeah.
So in terms of the bike, that yeah, bits and pieces over the years, slowly preparing for the trip, and then in terms of like the route that I'm doing from Brazil to England, and sort of the route and day by day. If there was just one road from Brazil to England non-stop, I would just get on the road and I would just each day just drive a bit and
Yeah.
see how I feel. I don't book things ahead
Okay.
unless I really, really, really have to, but I haven't done so far on this trip. I think the furthest in advance I've booked anything is about 3 hours or something like that. Because if you're coming into a city, then it's a good idea to have an idea of where you're going to go to. But otherwise, generally, I don't know where I'm going to be the next day. That's how I prefer it to be. I know
Yeah.
some people prefer to have things booked, but
Yeah.
I really don't like to do that.
Well,
Even in my hostel this morning, for example, I had to tell them, yeah, I've decided to stay a couple more nights, and then I'll tell them again in a couple of days what I'm going to do next. I'd
yeah.
much rather have it as flexible
Yeah.
as possible like that. And then in the route, I know that I want to going to drive from Brazil, Bolivia, Chile, Peru, Ecuador, Colombia, but I don't know where exactly I'll go. It's still kind of okay. So tomorrow I'm going to drive towards that mountain roughly, and I'll just see what roads there, and if that one's a interesting road or if it's not so interesting. Sometimes it's a bit more needs must, and I'll just get there as quickly
Yeah. Yeah.
as I can. It's getting dark or whatever. Just get there as quickly as possible. But sometimes if there's a more interesting road that's off the beaten track a little bit more, then I'll take that. I'll just see how it comes each day. But there are some things you've got to put a whole lot more research into. So I guess it's more research than planning in a way.
Yeah.
So I've researched, for example, that the Colombia Panama Darien Gap, for
I was
example.
just to mention that I was just going to say, I guess you're heading to that gap at some point.
For sure. And that you can't drive, of course. So you've got to work out another way, and it's
Either
plenty of
boat or
research.
fly, isn't it?
Yeah, boats are now tricky, unfortunately. It used to be before COVID that there were a couple of yachts of some sort that could take you across. You can still do it by boat, but you've got to like pay one fisherman to take you one bit, pay another fisherman,
See.
and it ends up becoming. And other travelers have talked about this as well, and kind of agree that it's 90% of the time it's so much less hassle to just put it on a plane. It's not much more expensive, even could it even be the same price, because some fisherman on some leg of it is going to charge you more, and you're not going to realize that it's more than it should be, and then
There's
in the
nothing you
end
can do when you rely on him for that leg, is there?
no, absolutely
They know
not. Exactly. So yeah, so that's taken some research to work out what's the best thing, and then at some point I'm going to get up to Canada, and I'll again air freight it to Japan, and yeah, my research has already told me um I've already found a company. I've already got a quote from them, well ahead. I won't book it until about 6 weeks, I think it is, I have to do before I actually do it. But I've already done the research to find out how to do it. So yeah, those things I've been done bit by bit over years, I guess. Yeah,
Yeah.
but partly because my job as a teacher is in years. I know that my school year runs August to July. International schools do that. So I knew about 4 years ago that I would be finishing my job in July 2024. I've known that for, yeah, like I said, 3 or 4 years.
Right.
So I could start planning for when this trip was going to start.
Fascinating. When you started this trip, you had an idea of how long it's going to take.
Yeah, so 2 years. 2 years is
2 years, and
that's
I guess when you mentioned about if there was one road from Sao Paulo to England to Oxford, or if that's assuming that's where you're going,
yeah.
then you would divide that up into 650, and I need to do 200 miles a day or whatever. But of course, it isn't. So, how far up to now have you kept to your rough mental schedule?
Yeah, so I have had to do a little bit of, yes, kind of scheduling along the way, partly because of seasons, um, and partly because of little bits like when I go across China. Um, there aren't many ways to get across China, for the technical reasons of foreigners not being allowed to drive their own bikes in China. So you have to do a guided tour, and there aren't many of them. In fact, the route that I'm going to take, there's only one tour per year. So that and the seasons, in my research planning document, I put very rough time frame on each part. So it says sort of like mid October, end of October.
Right.
I'll be in, I think I've said the US, I'll be there May or June. Um, and that's about all the detail you can do so far in advance. And so far it's been going all right. Yeah, I'm pretty much on schedule. Sometimes I've decided, oh, I'm going to stay in this place for a couple of days extra, and then I just spend a little less time a bit further down the road. But
Yeah.
in that planning, I gave myself leeway. So um, I would plot on Google Maps that it's going to take the drive from Lima to Quito. I can't remember. It's like I can do that in 5 days or something. So I
Right.
would plan that I'll do it in 10 days,
Uh,
uh, to have that
yeah.
to
Flexibility.
have that leeway, that flexibility. Yeah,
Yeah.
and it might do that I don't stop anywhere on the way because I don't find anywhere interesting, or
Yeah.
it might be that I do, and but that's sort of planned into
So I
the
guess that's
schedule.
my
Yeah.
next question, really, Henry. Is there anywhere that you've got friends, family, other riders you've linked in with that you've decided I'm going to be there roughly around this time, and I'm going to pitch camp for a week or a few days to spend time with these people? Or is there any um, landmarks that you've decided you'd like to look at? Uh,
Mm-mm.
because to do a trip like this, often people say, and I think you're going to come on to it a bit later on when you get in from into Europe and you head into the UK, you're doing that in a set amount of time, aren't you?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
So
That'll be
sometimes
true.
people do their whole journey like that, and they'll say, the only regret I've got, and you've got the luxury of time with yours, but the only
Yeah.
regret I've got is doing my world trip. I passed unknowingly within like 10 kilometers of a World Heritage
I see. Right.
or famous cave paintings that only 16 people have ever,
Yeah.
you
Sure.
know.
Sure. Sure.
So have you done that type of research into what's roughly within sort of 50K of you? Can you go?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. My It might be that some people have their idea that my travel is going to be I'm driving from this place to this place, and that is the trip. That's it. I think I saw on Horizons Unlimited of Facebook
Yeah.
that some guy had said I've just driven around the world in 40 days on a scooter. And what an amazing thing to do. What an achievement. Like, that is crazy, isn't it? What crazy, amazing thing to do. But that's not what that my trip is not about just getting from one place to another.
No.
I've got so many places that I want to go to that I've already been to on my trip.
Yeah.
And there's no way that I want to miss out on those places. There's some places that I've already planned or had already planned. Like, as you said about the YouTube channel I've started. In the second episode, I go to this place in Brazil called the Pantanal, which is the best place in the world to see jaguars. And I saw 5 jaguars just 10 meters away. It was absolutely incredible. And that was a place I knew I was going to go to. There's no doubt I am going to go to that place. And there's various other places that I've planned to, but also when you're driving along, you meet other travelers who've just been to this place, that place,
Yeah.
and then 10 more places get added to my
Yeah.
to my route as well. It seems in Peru that's particularly the case. I'd only crossed the Peruvian border from Chile about 10 minutes, where I met a Peruvian motorcyclist who'd just been driving around South America for 14 months.
Wow.
And he immediately made me write down 5 places that I had to visit in
Do not
Peru.
miss these places.
Absolutely, yeah. And yeah, it would be just crazy if I didn't visit. Like you said, you find that you pass within 10 kilometers of this World Heritage Site. But also realistically, you cannot visit every single one.
Yeah.
When when you zoom in on Google Maps to a place, Peru seems to be particularly because of the Inca civilization. There are places all over the place. And when I was driving through the mountains, I knew that there were places, an ancient temple over there, a burial site over there. If I visited every single one, I'd still be there now 3 weeks later.
Yeah, of course.
It's impossible. So there's a little bit of a balance there. But yeah, for sure, there's lots of places that I'm really excited to visit, for sure.
Brilliant. Yeah. And I guess that's the response I hoped I would get. I didn't. I was dreading you saying, "Yeah, not really interested in anything like that." I just thought I'd get. Oh no.
No. There's too much to see, and part of the thrill sometimes is being on the motorbike. You can do it by yourself as well. There's, for example, just 10 days ago, I went to this lake, Humantai Lake, which is this beautiful lake. It's about 4,000 meters nestled in the mountains. And I drove up there on this cliffside track up the mountains through the clouds to this hostel that I could stay in, and then hike the last bit the next day. And there were loads of people in the hostel who had just got the bus up there, which is fine, great. I mean, if that's the way you do it, get the bus. But driving up there on the bike was just incredible, absolutely part of the experience. If I hadn't gone up to visit this lake, I wouldn't have driven this beautiful road through the clouds.
Wow.
You'd miss out so much.
While you're riding up there, and it's so wonderful, do you ever have in your mind, what am I going to do if this bike all of a sudden coughs it? If this bike starts going,
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
what is your contingency if that happens and you've only saw another vehicle, I don't know, 7 hours before? What you
Yeah.
what you I mean, how are you going to contact people? What have you got? What have you done about that?
Yeah, a lot of it's going to be making it up on the spot and trying to work out what you're going to do, because I think partly, like you were saying, you might not meet someone for might not be another vehicle coming down for hours.
Yeah.
You might be a long way from another house or whatever, or you might be just 50 meters on from someone in a little house who doesn't speak any English, of course, and my Spanish
Why
is
would
limited.
they?
Of course, yeah, of course. So I think a lot of it is improvising on the spot and just trying to work it out. My mechanical skills are low. I did go on a sort of starters. It's the off-road skills, the Simon Pavey's off-road skills school. I did
Okay.
the adventure. I forgot what it's called. Adventure motorcycle maintenance, I think it's called, something like that. Which
Yeah.
I would definitely recommend. That was really, really great to get a bit of confidence about. Just a bit of confidence about getting a screwdriver and sticking it in your bike somewhere. However, it is only level one. There's a limited amount of stuff you can learn in a 1 day course.
Hmm.
So if the engine starts putting,
Mhm.
then yeah, I don't know. Most likely, I don't know what to do. So it is, I don't know, walking down the road, finding someone who can call someone who can call someone. Yeah, a lot of improvisation.
Yeah.
That I have been in one situation like that on a previous trip. When I finally passed my motorcycle license in Brazil,
Yeah.
the very next week, I went out to buy my first ever motorbike, my beautiful Suzuki V-Strom.
Yeah.
And then 3 weeks later, I set off to Patagonia from Sao Paulo. As a teacher, I get generous holidays,
I know.
so I had six. Apologies.
None of
I
that.
had six.
Well, at least you're honest. Most teachers, as
Oh,
I know, say, "Oh, well, we haven't got the children there, but we don't know how much work we've got to do during them holidays." Or like, oh,
no, I'm very, I'm very fortunate. I like teachers work hard during term time, but yes, we get incredibly generous holidays, and with no work to do whatsoever. So I had 6 weeks to drive from Sao Paulo down Patagonia as far south as I could get in Argentina, and then back up again
I
to
hope
Sao
you've got
Paulo.
another best on then, because you knew.
So yeah, so I had a bit of driving to do, and quite far south in Patagonia, really in the middle of nowhere. And funnily enough, I had just seen some cave paintings that day.
Oh,
I
really?
did I did drive off on a side track to go and see these ancient cave paintings, which was absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
And then I just had 3 hours drive on the famous road through Patagonia. Suddenly at Ruta 40, Route 40, the
Yeah.
famous road going through, and I had a crash
Oh,
on the gravel. Um, I don't think I'm the only one to lose concentration when you're on a long straight
yeah.
road. The wind coming down from the Andes is absolutely insane. So you're at 45 degrees, and then you're up right, and then you're at 45 degrees, and yeah, I lost concentration. To be honest, it was my fault,
Yeah.
and I'm come off onto the gravel on the side of the road, and going about 100 kilometers an hour. So
60
what's
miles
that
an hour.
in
Yeah.
about 60 miles an hour?
Quite fast.
Wipe out. Yeah, a fair speed, yeah,
Yeah.
and wiped out on the gravel. At that point, I hadn't seen a car for an hour or so, I guess. Um, the first problem was even not just picking up my bike, but getting it pushed up the gravel back onto the road, because the
Right.
gravel
It's
slopes down either
oh,
side of the road. So just even pushing it up there, because it was really gravelly. So even driving it up would have been very, very difficult. I had soft bags at that point. One of them was completely destroyed. So I had to take the liner and strap it to the bike on the pillion. Um, one car did pass me in that whole afternoon and evening. One car did come and stop me, and two guys, they were Chilean actually. They helped me push my bike up. My bike was battered and bruised, but other than a bent brake pedal,
Oh yeah, yeah.
it was entirely drivable still.
Good.
I guess testament to the Suzuki
Power of
V-Strom,
Suzuki,
I'd
yeah.
say. But other than that car, that was the only thing that passed me. Fortunately, was able to drive. I was in a huge amount of pain from my shoulder. I'd really wrenched that somehow, but I was able to drive on. It got dark very quickly though, and I had to. I fortunately found a farm down a side track. There was a little sign saying farm, and I was able to get to there. So I guess I was lucky there. If the bike was either unrideable or I was unrideable, no, if I
Yeah,
was
no, you
unable to
were
ride
unable
it,
to ride. Yeah,
then that might have been tricky. Yeah,
yeah.
I got a little bit lucky there with the lack of damage to the bike and lack of damage to me because yeah, one car passed me or one came and did stop. I don't know how they would have helped me if I'd been more injured. Ultimately, what happened? I got to this farm, and I guess the adrenaline the day before had got me through because the next day I couldn't even lift my arm up.
Time it's
So
after, isn't it?
a couple who happened to be staying at the farm gave me a lift to the nearest hospital, which was, I think it was 4 hours drive away.
Oh,
So if I'd had to do that, yeah, that would have been a great job. And then I convalesced for a week. That was in El Calafate, the almost the southernmost point of Patagonia before Ushuaia starts.
wow.
So yeah, improvisation. Just got to work it out when you get there. I don't think you can plan for a lot of those things. Unfortunately, you just
No,
got
I
to
think you're right.
make it up as it comes. Yeah,
Well, I think you're very lucky. You certainly did suffer from some good luck there. Um,
yeah,
but I think good planning as well. The bike, I think
for sure.
they're very very um, durable, and something I've found about Japanese bikes is not just Suzuki's, but most Japanese bikes, the the alloys are quite pliable. They'll bend rather than snap, which gives you a time to
Interesting.
fix it.
Hmm.
Um, and sometimes I think with some of the newer bikes, not just from China, people are riding a lot of Chinese bikes. And I know that in South America, there's millions of them imported Chinese and in
Right, right.
so the alloys tend to be far less flexible and they'll snap rather than bend.
Interesting.
Then
Yeah,
you have a spare one or you have to not have one. Um,
yeah, yeah,
and you're not going to get a part for it either very quickly. So
yeah, yeah.
I think the choice of bike's definitely a good one, Henry.
And I guess also you said about we said earlier about my bike being at the mechanic right now.
Yeah,
Just for a bit of TLC, it's not because something's wrong necessarily.
yeah,
Couple of things to improve, but if you're going on such a long trip, you need to keep your bike looked after, get the oil changed regularly, air filter, those kind of things. Just and this lovely mechanic here, um, I just said he was really good. He was recommended to me by someone else, and he I said that I felt there was something wrong with the suspension, perhaps.
yeah.
And he actually took my bike out for a little drive around the block, came back and he said, no, it's in the steering bearing. That's the problem,
Head bearing, yeah.
which immediately gives you some confidence. He knows what he's doing. So
Yes.
when he came back and said that, I said, can you just have a look at other things
Yeah,
and let me know? And he sent me a photograph just this morning, actually. He sent me a photograph of the fuel filter. And he said this needs a clean out or a replacing as well. So like he's doing a really thorough job that's going to make sure that my bike can carry on for another 40,000 kilometers. That's what I need it to do.
absolutely.
And by then it would have done 112,000 kilometers.
Wow,
So yeah,
amazing.
it needs to be looked after.
Well, I think that the benefits of planned preventative maintenance are,
Yeah,
it's so valuable, um, because it can take something as simple as a filter blocking up to
yeah,
stop your bike, or that head bearing he's talking about. They might be, that bearing, even in the UK, might be 20 quid, 15 quid.
sure,
And
quite.
you
But could be the
undo one
difference
bolt,
between,
grease it, take it out and clean it and put it on, and it'll save your trip.
yeah,
Uh,
absolutely.
so absolutely, keeping on top of maintenance. I wasn't talking to Sam Manicom, but we were having a conversation online about the benefits of
Uh-huh.
maintenance like that. Sam is a great advocate of, you know, um, making sure that things are okay before they go wrong, which is planned
Yeah,
preventative maintenance,
absolutely.
rather than so many people say, well, winging a prayer, hope it won't go wrong. If it does, I'll fix it. And I'm like, okay. But if you don't check that bolt or that chain tension, or
Yeah, yeah,
just make sure that that spindle is tight enough every so often, and it falls off, and well, either your bike or you or the trip are ruined,
yeah,
and it's
yeah,
a
yeah.
crazy price to pay for not making sure those minimal things are done as often as you can within reason.
And like you said, it's a minimal price, as in
Yeah,
cost, 20 quid or whatever, and also the time as well. That the time to replace that little thing
yeah,
before something goes wrong, to the time that it's gonna take to replace this thing, all the things that go wrong because of that thing.
yes. That's the key, isn't it? You know, so many people have lost a chain and broken a crankcase when all they had to do
Right,
was
right.
tighten a chain.
Yeah, yeah.
you know,
Too simple. Yeah, absolutely. And look, I'm not a great mechanic myself. I did adjust the chain tension a couple of weeks, 3 weeks ago. I
yeah,
did that myself. But when I'm getting a mechanic to do it, I wanted to stay in Lima for a week anyway because it's capital city. There's loads to see and do here.
yeah.
So it's no trouble to leave my bike at the mechanic for a few days. It's not
Oh,
like I wanted to use my bike today. No, no, I'm not going to use it anyway. So if someone's working on it, then yeah,
yeah,
no
and
trouble.
it'll ride better. I always say, and there's this
Mm.
psychological effect of when you clean your car, it feels better. I I remember, well, lots of times actually. I'm a bit of a car enthusiast as well. But so whenever I sell a car, I let it go. I've got my dog. We met the other day, and my dog was on my knee. So he's in whatever car I've got. So they get a bit messy. And then when I come to sell a car, obviously I have it valeted, and it's like, oh,
Of
perfect,
course.
and it's all all the little brushes in the vents, and it's all done lovely. And then, of course, what happens is you don't want to sell it. You think, oh, wow, it's never looked this good. If it looked like this, I wouldn't be selling.
Right.
And it also drives so nice.
Of course.
You go into your £10, £10 car wash, and you come out thinking, oh, wow, that noise has gone. Wow, it feels
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
so smooth. And there's that times 1,000 when you've had your bike serviced. You've got that confidence
Absolutely.
that.
Like and like you said, those noises. I've spent because I just you just get worried about little bits and pieces. So the last sort of 1,000 kilometers, I've been crouching over my bike as I drive it, listening to all these different sounds. Like, was that was that little tapping sound there before?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
No. Yes. No. And I know, like you said, when I pick up the bike in a couple of days and I start driving, I won't be listening to anything. I'll just be la 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 la.
Yeah, sounds
Everything's fine.
great. Headphones in. Beautiful.
Absolutely.
Oh dear. So, do you have any technology that you take with you for your trips? Like, for example, you say that you plan ahead, usually no more than half a day or whatever, for your accommodation. And I know that different countries, people tend to think, oh, South America, Central America, like it's a country. It's massive. And,
Right.
you know, so mobile phone signal in Brazil might not be the same one as it is in Chile, for example, or Peru. And so how do you have eSIMs, or how do you get by with that? And do you have a satellite phone? What do you have?
I found out only when I started this trip that my phone doesn't take eSIMs. Unfortunately, I didn't even know when I bought the phone a few years ago. I didn't even know they existed.
No, I don't think any of us did then, did we?
And living in Brazil, I had 5G SIM cards. You know, I
Vodafone and
never.
all the other stuff.
Yeah, it's internet super fast, mobile networks. But yeah, Brazilian SIM cards don't work outside Brazil.
Yeah.
A lot of the time, I don't worry about it. If I drove through Bolivia, I think I was going through Bolivia for 10 days, so I didn't bother buying a SIM card. And nor in Chile, I was there for a week. I didn't bother because every hotel, hostel, guest house has got some Wi-Fi that I can use if I need to. But even then, I don't really. It's kind of a luxury to be able to check my Instagram 10 times a day. Most of the time, I don't need it. For navigation, I download Google Maps ahead of when I'm going there.
Yeah.
So, which is really easy to do now. It wasn't a few years ago, but now on Google Maps, it's really, really easy. I do have Maps Me as a backup with all the maps downloaded, and that occasionally that's better than Google Maps for finding some things. But for navigation, I just use Google Maps, and it's all downloaded, so I don't need the internet. And then there's been a couple of times where I've not found. Quite often, I'm at my hotel the night before, a hostel, and then that morning I think, oh, I'm going to drive there. So I'll go on to booking.com using the Wi-Fi and find somewhere to stay. But sometimes I don't know where I'm going to go, even the end of that day. So I just turn up in the town and there's a big sign saying hotel. I just go in and say,
Yeah.
I've got enough Spanish or Portuguese Spanish. When they're combined, they call it Portuñol.
Oh, Spangalese. I always call it.
Spangali maybe Portuñol. They usually call it. So I can ask, have you got a room? How much is it? That's fine for me. So, or if you can't, just get Google Translate. And again, I've downloaded the language packs for Google Translate, so that doesn't need internet either. But in Peru, because I knew I was going to be here for a month at least, I did buy a SIM card, and
Right.
it's so cheap. It cost me £8
Right.
for 20 gigabytes of data,
Oh, brilliant.
which should be enough. I mean, it's enough now because I'm using the 4G for
Yeah,
our
I'm
call.
sorry about that. You might use quite a lot of your data for this because it's
The hostel's got Wi-Fi, but it's a bit inconsistent.
Right.
So it's fine to book a hotel if you need to, but
Yeah.
not for a video call that you need to. So
Yeah.
that's my phone technology. I've got a couple or three cameras as well for recording my YouTube
Oh, great.
and keeping track of things. I've got quite a new GoPro 11, which I tend to use to record my kind of speaking to the camera stuff. And then I've got the Insta360 X3, not the newest one, the last one.
All right.
To put on I've got a 3 meter selfie stick. So when I put the camera on the end of that selfie stick on the camera, it really looks like
a drone.
It really does. I mean, people have actually asked me, "Wow, what kind of drone have you got?" A couple of people said, "I love your drone skills." It's just on. I mean, it is magic somehow, isn't it? These Insta360s.
They are amazing. Yeah.
So I have that either on the end of the selfie stick or just on top of my handlebars. But it is a little bit fiddly to do the editing on the Insta360. After you filmed it. I mean, it looks amazing, and to be able to pan around from me to the view is an amazing luxury, but it is more fiddly. So that's why I do all my sort of speaking to camera stuff. I use the GoPro for that because it's just talking to it. I don't need to. I don't want to fiddle around with editing after that. Yeah, those are the main things I've got. I've got my laptop, so I can do my editing as well. And it's quite. Laptops are so tiny anyway. I think I don't find it troublesome to pack that away. And I think also when you're traveling for a long time, um, you can't travel. You can't do something every day. You
No.
can't be driving and seeing a museum, a famous place every day. Sometimes you just have to have a chill out day,
Yeah.
watch a couple of films on your laptop, and relax. So yeah, having a laptop for me is what is definitely worth squeezing between my clothes in
Yeah,
the box.
definitely. And I think that choice of cameras is amazing. I haven't got an Insta 360, but I would like one. I do watch lots of videos, and I think it's interesting that you mentioned about the editing, because I know that people I know that've got them, when they have sent me something and said, "Well, have a look at this. It's amazing that it looks as if it's like flying in front of the bike," but
Yeah, yeah,
in such a way that you feel sick, because it's like, whoa, and I need to get used to that. It doesn't look like that when you first put the raw footage on.
yeah, yeah. Absolutely. It's took a little bit of getting used to, but yeah, ultimately it's definitely worth it for sure. Like when I went across the salt flats, I mentioned that I drove across there. Oh, the 360 shots. I mean, once you edit it, it doesn't look 360, obviously,
Yeah,
but it, to see me driving my bike across the salt flats is just
yeah,
just
it's amazing,
that
isn't it?
yeah. Oh,
And it's interesting people
speechless.
said about your drone skills, because there are these drones, aren't there, that you literally throw up in the air and it'll follow your bike.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
But
I did really want a drone. That
yeah,
that, that was that was part of my plan that I would bring a drone. In the end, um, I didn't because of the cost.
yeah,
But then I realized it was a bit tricky, part of planning for my trip and preparing for it, because I was leaving Brazil at the same time as starting, almost the same time as starting my trip. So I had to pack up my bike, ready for my trip, and I left it at my friend's place in Sao Paulo. And
right,
then I took all the rest of my stuff back to England.
right.
So then I was in England thinking, oh, if I get a drone, can I fit it in my bike that I'm not even with anymore? Trying to remember, was there space in that box or not?
Yeah,
In the end, I didn't bring a drone, and I'm glad I didn't. Partly because, and this is a tip for anyone who's considering,
mm,
starting up a YouTube channel or filming themselves, to already edit the footage from a GoPro and an Insta 360 is a fair bit of a job to knit it all together.
yeah,
If I also had a drone and the footage from that to try and fit in together, I'd be spending even more hours
yeah,
making my
yeah,
videos, and it would be too much, too much. I want to enjoy my trip. I'm not a YouTuber. I do have a channel
yeah,
with videos, and I'm documenting my trip. But
yeah.
number one, I'm a motorcycle traveler,
Yes,
and second is the YouTube. If the YouTube becomes it takes over my trip, then I quit. I quit the YouTube part because I'm not quitting
no,
my drone.
no.
That's number one for sure.
No, that's very good advice, actually, and it's a good good that you mentioned about, obviously, the ride is, that's what I always say, the ride is the adventure. The fact that you're recording
Absolutely,
it for
yeah,
other people to see, the fact we're doing this podcast so people can listen to it or watch it, is fantastic. But the reality is,
sure.
if this didn't happen, you're still going around the world on your V-Strom.
Absolutely,
You know,
absolutely. That is number one. Yeah,
yeah,
I would do it without cameras. If I was,
yeah, exactly.
it's funny, isn't it? You're talking about Sam Manicom, who's done all these things
Yeah,
before these cameras existed,
yeah,
and I would be doing the same if there were no cameras, no phones, no laptops, no internet.
yeah,
I would be doing what Sam did. I'd be doing
absolutely.
it anyway,
Yeah,
for
definitely.
sure.
And I mean, you gave some advice about that, how much more technical wizardry takes more time to edit. But I'd also add to that as well. I'd say to people, you need to check with the countries you're going to ride through as well. But there are countries that won't let you fly a drone either, or even take.
Yeah, sure. For
So,
sure, for sure,
you're going
yeah.
to go and spend £800 or £900 on a drone because you can do easily,
Oh, for sure.
and then find that when you get to Turkey, for example, they take it off you.
Yeah, yeah.
That
More planning ahead, yeah. Yeah, if your dream was to do some drone shots of I'll be going across China. If your dream was to take drone shots of Everest Base Camp, yeah, you need to think again because that's not going to
yeah,
happen. You're right. It's some funny countries sometimes. I think Honduras as well doesn't let you, so you can take it all the way through Central America, apart from like the middle one,
crazy, isn't it? Yeah,
which could be, yeah, you just don't think of those kind of things, and then
yeah,
suddenly it's too late.
yeah, yeah. I've gone to countries. My son's got a drone, and he's actually got a, a little company doing drone footage of buildings
Mm,
as they are built. So people
right, right.
say, "Can you? I want the drone footage of the lot, and then the foundations, and then they knit it together for investors and stuff." Um,
Sure.
but certain places we've gone and said, "Oh, let's take our drone; it'd be amazing." And then, like, you start looking online, and people are like, "I've just had
Uh-huh.
my 1,200 quid drone took off me at the airport
Right,
in
right, right.
Turkey or at the border, and they won't
Uh,
give me a receipt and said, if you don't want locking up, I suggest you get on the plane." And they're like, "Oh,
wowza.
so
Oh, great.
it's a big risk unless you've planned ahead and you know exactly, and you've got a letter.
Uh,
Even then, some places, some borders, the middle of nowhere, no matter what letter you've got, they'll just say, "I'm not interested, don't even want to look at it."
no, of course not.
So you've
And
just got to,
further to that, there are some places like tourist sites that don't let you fly a drone either.
yeah, yeah,
So I've already been to the Pantanal where I saw the jaguars.
yeah,
You could fly drones in certain places, but not in all of them. In another place, where there was lots of parrots and other birds flying around, you weren't allowed to use drones at all there. And
yeah,
lots of also um, architectural, archaeological sites. You're not allowed
yes,
to fly drones there either.
yeah,
So in a way, having the Insta 360 on the end of a massive long selfie stick is far better. You still get some amazing shots in that way.
yeah, yeah.
I'm not trying. I'm not an ambassador for Insta 360.
No,
I've
I'm
just
not, unless you.
absolutely. I've just used it and found it to be amazing.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. It's definitely, you know, it's the newer technology that a few years ago you wouldn't even believe anything like that could work.
Absolutely, yeah.
It does. So
No,
amazing.
absolutely.
Wow. So you're in Lima, Peru. What's the weather like? Is it summer? Summer there now, I guess, coming up.
It is, yeah, the beginning of summer here. Although Lima being right by the coast, it's quite variable because of the sea mist and stuff comes across.
Yeah,
Yeah, so it's nice today. It's quite sunny, but when I arrived, it was totally grey clouds, 20 degrees, which isn't so bad, is it? But
well,
again, I'm thinking I'm in a tropical country. It's almost summer. It should be warmer than that, but yeah, the sea really makes things quite changeable, even during the day as well. I can't complain, Ian. I can't complain. It's lovely
no,
here.
no. And even if you are complaining, no one's interested.
Absolutely. I'm here. I'm outside. I'm in a t-shirt.
Yeah,
I'm
that
not complaining.
that says enough because I'm just going to look at my computer and it says 10th of December 2024, 4 degrees. That's so be grateful for your 20.
I'm enjoying it. Don't worry. Yeah.
I can see you are. So you're going to get your bike back. It'll have had a service. You'll have had a week or so in the capital having a look around.
A service for myself as well. Yeah.
Well, yeah,
Absolutely.
and that's important. I want to. I'm really pleased that I used to hate this when people use this word. until I realised you're a primary school teacher. You probably know that this word actually is a word. This like a segue into this. Now,
There we go.
I used to listen to people, especially American YouTubers, and go, "Oh, that's a good segue into that," and I was like, "Segue? What on earth?"
And now you're using it.
And then I thought, I'm going to Google it. So I thought, oh, actually, it's a variation of the word blah blah blah. So I thought, oh, well, I've learned something there. 60.
Congratulations.
So I'm going to use it. So it's a great segue into what I wanted to mention, which is about the benefits to our mental health of riding.
Right, for sure. For
People
sure.
often underestimate, I think, the benefits. Take away all the risks that we all know exist of being on two wheels. We just have to accept that you are more vulnerable on two wheels than you are on four. Of
For
course,
sure. For sure.
to the weather, to those people on the school run on the phones, we are more
Yes.
vulnerable. But we're recently, I'd say in the last couple of years, becoming more and more aware of the benefits of men predominantly talking about mental health. And
Yeah, for sure.
it's been a weird last 10 years for people. We've had the pandemic. Whatever you think about that, people have all their own views about that, which I'm not particularly interested in. But, it's been a terrible time for people that have been stuck in their homes, especially in cities where they're in apartments. I've been very, very lucky that I live in quite a rural area, and I've got a
Hmm.
big back garden, and we had a pool that the kids could go in, and we could at least
Wow. Right.
we had the benefits. Oh, it's only a pop-up pool. Don't think Copacabana. But it was a nice. We had some great weather in 2020. Everyone was, in their own home, but at least we could go out there. And I remember making some sort of funny little videos of us in the pool with an airbed and a few cocktails and stuff. But we had the opportunity to do that. And some people in big cities, especially in the Americas and in Europe, big cities in Italy and where they all live in apartments, awful. Never even be able to go out of your apartment for months and months and months. Dreadful.
Well, that was my situation during the pandemic. As I said, I only had bought my bike um, in November 2019,
Right.
and I went on this big Patagonia trip.
Yeah.
Came back at the end of January, started work again, and then weeks later, um, uh, things started going crazy.
Yeah.
And I was living in Sao Paulo, one of the biggest cities in the world, in an apartment by myself. Um, and yeah, it was tough. I was making these videos for school, and I was still working, which was a nice release in some kind of way. But I was able to drive my bike.
Oh,
So although restrictions were very heavy in some kind of ways, being sensible, you didn't go and see your friends all the time and stuff, but you weren't locked in your apartment block.
right.
No, there was hardly anyone out on the streets. And in supermarkets, it was very, very carefully controlled and things. But I was allowed out to drive my bike,
Oh, that's good.
and that was an absolute saving grace because otherwise I wasn't seeing anyone. Um, Stuck in my apartment almost all the time, and then I would be working on my laptop, glued to the screen as everyone else was.
Yeah.
And then I was very, very fortunate that at 3:30 at the end of the day, I could, and I did almost every day, go for a drive on my bike. Um, there wasn't much traffic, obviously, so I could get out of the city into the hills, and that was absolutely glorious. When after the pandemic, when traffic was back, I would never do that because it would take me about 2 hours to get out of the city through the
Yeah.
traffic.
Yeah.
But during the pandemic, that was an absolute saving grace. Really, really, really.
Yeah.
So yeah, I really, really felt like you said the mental health benefits
Yeah.
are immeasurable. I would say to some people.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm pleased you've said that it was beneficial for you. Because even now, um, I don't think it's just the fact that we've gone through a global pandemic and that economically times are tough in certain countries. Certainly in the UK, times are getting, money's tight for people, and uh,
Sure.
it's a difficult time, and people suffer mentally. And I think people have that same benefit if only they knew, even if it's just to get
Right. Right.
and get out.
Uh-huh.
When I'm very lucky that I don't consider that I've been affected massively by poor mental health, or
Hmm.
other than, I guess, like most people have. I lost my father during the pandemic, and so the grieving of that was terrible. We were very close. We saw each other every day. So yes, I did, but I consider that to be, that grieving is what we all have to go through when we lose a
That's part
close
of life.
loved one. Yeah. Um, but that doesn't mean that other people aren't affected in lots of different ways by lots of different things. And so, riding a bike can give people so much positive mental energy.
Absolutely.
I go out on my bike, and I come back, and it's just, I'm on my own. I don't necessarily listen to music. Sometimes I do, but not often. I'm just out there, breathing, seeing, smelling, hearing, and it's just another world. It's just amazing.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. It really takes you away from everything, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. And we have a thing, you might have heard of it. There's a thing called Andy's Man Club, which is
Hmm.
a very, very massively popular, thank God, club, um, which I would urge people who want and need to talk to someone to look online for their local meeting and go along. I think it's predominantly for the UK at the moment, but there are places all over the world where people can get help. But I just wanted to give that a shout, and I will put a link in. And I didn't intend to do that at the beginning of this video, if I'm honest. Never even entered my mind. But the fact we're talking about it, and I see it all the time, and I've had friends and family that have definitely benefited from it. In
Hmm.
fact, last summer, my son did is in a band, and they did a gig for a local Andy's Man Club meet.
Oh, wonderful.
Everybody
Right.
came along to, and it were amazing. Heartfelt and moving. They'd lost a friend to suicide,
Wow.
and,
Oh, my right.
and they wanted to bring awareness to people. So I will definitely put a link in to that for people. But never underestimate the positive benefits of riding your bike.
No, absolutely, and it's so important. I'm so pleased that you're talking about it, and we'll post that link as well because yeah, a friend of mine was also lost to suicide in the last couple of years as well, and yeah, we amongst that group of friends, we had no idea at the time. Even those who are even closer to him, who were very close to him, had no idea,
Yeah,
and so things like this can be really important.
yeah, yeah. Thank you. I don't want it to go down that road too much, but absolutely, people should understand that. Talk to people if you need to talk to people. Don't suffer on your own. People
Absolutely.
will always listen to you and give you help.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
So that's great. Um, so now you've been 2 or 3 days in Lima now, have you? I can't remember when you were.
This is one of the joys, Ian, to be honest, that when you're traveling
You
for so
lose
long,
track.
I can't remember. It is Tuesday today. I got here Friday, so I've been here. This is my fifth day here. Fifth day here.
Fifth day. And so,
Yeah.
what's the plan when you get your bike back all shiny and breathing and beautiful again? Yeah. What's
Um,
next?
I don't know.
Oh,
I
great.
don't know. I just know that I'll go along the coast a bit further
Yeah.
before heading back up into the mountains because there are some beautiful, beautiful mountains in the north and lakes and some really incredible drives to go on.
Right.
And then Yep, that's about it. I've got
Oh,
planned.
wow. Amazing.
It's getting close to Christmas, and Christmas and things like this can be a bit tricky when you're traveling. And to a
Mm.
certain extent, you don't worry about it. I know that I've spent a couple of Christmases by myself, just with me and my bike, and my Christmas lunch is sat in a bus stop with a cold lasagna from the night before. It's fine, that's part of it. But I have been fortunate enough that through couch surfing, which I am a great advocate for
Yeah.
as well. Couch surfing, I've been invited to a Christmas event in the north of Peru. So I'm going to try and make sure that I'm there for it.
Yeah.
Again, it's if I don't, then that's fine.
Yeah.
It would be lovely, but if something else catches my eye or another route, then I won't do that. But it'd be nice to get to do that, and then it'll be almost straight into Ecuador after that, and I'll spend a little bit of time in Ecuador, a little bit of time in Colombia. Um, yeah.
You're in a very well. You're in a Spanish colony, ex-Spanish colony, and you're going to be
Mm,
in the Spanish, Hispanic, as North Americans call it, region, which is very Catholic for the next few months, and so
right.
great time to celebrate Christmas.
For sure. Right.
It's a
Yeah, it'd be
massive,
interesting to see how it is celebrated for sure. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, um, I guess it's going to be similar to in the Philippines, which is like obviously 300 and odd years as a Spanish colony as well,
Yeah, and
and then
still
an
Catholic.
American
Yeah.
colony. So you've got that American stroke Spanish fusion, um, plus their indigenous, sort of ancient religions. It's very very similar to Central America, really, and South America in that way. Um,
Right. The mix of the cultures there is so interesting to see how it all comes, and
yeah,
yeah, I'll still be in the Americas.
yes.
I guess I'll be in Central America when it's Easter time as well. So it'll be interesting to see those festivals
Oh,
happening as well, wherever I am.
just today saw a news article on BBC News, just flicking through my phone, and I saw something, and I'm a bit disappointed, if I'm honest, that it's a BBC article, and it said that Christmas, which some people celebrate, and I was like,
Oh, right.
wow,
Yeah.
wow,
Yeah.
that's the British Broadcasting Corporation. I just felt it's not that long ago when it was like midnight mass and Christmas special. This
Interesting.
some people celebrate that.
Yeah. I I Yeah, maybe there's a different point of view there. I don't know. Having lived abroad for quite a while now,
Yeah,
that makes sense to me more. Yeah, because I lived in China. Not much Christmas. I mean, lots of in a way, there's a lot of Christmas decorations, but
yeah,
not the actual Christian
yes,
ceremony, a Christian celebration, I should say.
yeah,
Um, yeah, it's interesting. A lot of people are celebrating the festive time, and New Year is important as well. But it's
yeah.
interesting, actually, though, that yeah, the Christian ceremony is, I suppose, yeah, only celebrated by some when you're all around the world. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, this. I guess I was thinking more of a British centric.
No, of course. No, I see what you mean. Yeah.
But yeah, it's just I guess as a for me, I always like to remind myself that there's a reason for the season, if you like, for me,
For sure.
and,
Yeah.
and for millions, and certainly the vast majority of people in the part of the world that you're going to be traveling through. Christmas and Easter will be massive,
Right.
massive.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So it's a great treat that you'll be able to see and possibly participate.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Can't wait.
So you're going to how long will it take you to get up to the gap where you're going to have to fly your bike over from
To
now?
the Darien Gap.
Gap, yeah. Because that's where the
I,
next shipping, where you can't ride anymore. That's where you've got.
yeah, I guess it'll be mid-March roughly, because I'm going to spend a fair bit of time, still another couple of or 3 weeks in Peru,
Yeah,
a few weeks in Ecuador and Colombia. Yeah, so it'll be roughly middle of March
right.
ish that I'll have to. I do need to actually book it about a month before, so I'll have to be slightly organized with actually
Yeah.
booking that. But it'll be roughly mid-March that I'll be shipping from Colombia to Panama. Yeah.
So that's interesting because you mentioned about the seasons. And of course, the seasons
Yeah.
work very well for you in a way, aren't they? Because as you go north,
Yeah.
you're
Phew.
going. Yeah,
At some point, this trip was going to be a 1 year trip, and that the
right.
seasons were going to be a lot trickier at that point.
Yeah,
I was
absolutely.
going to be and one reason that it became a 2 year is because I realized that I was going to be in the US in January when I was doing a 1 year plan, and the US in January you can't go anywhere
Two states up, and
almost.
you don't want to be going there, do you?
Yeah, exactly. So I'd be only in sort of Texas and
Texas,
Florida, yeah.
Florida, and Los Angeles. Right,
Yeah, and I really wanted to go to Alaska, um, and it was just nothing was going to work. So yeah, 2 years works a lot better because you're right. I'll be going through Central America, March, April, maybe a bit of May, that I'll get to Mexico, and then I'll get to the US in June, which will be just about perfect to go carry on up to Alaska,
yeah,
end of June roughly,
yeah,
and then come back down um, to spend some more time in the US and Canada before I. Then the next shipping will be from Vancouver to Japan, which will be in roughly September, I guess.
right. So you're
Yeah,
going to avoid the worst of the weather up there as well. You still get nice weather if you're going to be coming down to Vancouver anyway. They escape the vast majority of the Canadian
yeah, not so
weather.
bad. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So I'll have to be a little bit careful with timing. I mean, I'm really excited to drive to Alaska, but I'll need to get back down again before things go crazy again. Um, because from what I hear in Alaska, people can correct me if I'm wrong here, but yeah, and not only is the warm weather quite short,
yeah,
but even by the end of August, I was told this quite recently that by the end of August, the snow and ice melt is so great that roads are impassable because they're too wet and muddy.
right, right.
So it's really only kind of the end of June and July that motorbikes can cope. If you're in a 4x4, that's different.
That's
But
different. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So what's the
So
why have you why I'm just interested to know you're going up to whereabouts in Alaska are you planning to go up to Ankara that are you going that up way?
to Anchorage, I've not thought
Sorry.
about that. No idea.
Okay.
No
But
idea.
you're coming back down into Canada to ship it. Is that
Yes,
logistical?
because from what I have researched, Vancouver is probably the best place to air freight to Japan. Because although Anchorage is a huge
Port.
stopover,
Yeah,
port and stopping point for air freight as well,
yeah.
actually the paperwork and mechanics of actually getting your bike on a plane, it's more of a stopover. Things don't really come off and on
Oh, I
so
see.
much.
Right. I see.
So Vancouver is better and cheaper than the US.
Right.
And also, I'm air freighting rather than actually
Shipping.
shipping
Yeah.
because it's just too um, unreliable and takes too. Other than it taking a lot of time,
It's
it
about
can be
6 weeks, isn't it?
really
It's crazy.
6 weeks if you're lucky,
If
or it
everything
gets
goes,
stuck in
yeah.
a port, and your bike can be stuck in customs for a long time. Whereas the air freight is a lot more snappy, and you can pick it up the next day.
Brilliant. And have you
So
not booked that one? Have you booked that one?
no. Again, that I think I have to book that from memory. I've got a quote and the
Yeah.
details, but from memory, it's about 6 weeks in advance. I've got to book that 6 weeks,
Oh,
2
okay.
months, or something like that. So not unmanageable. If it was sort of booking it 6 months in advance, that
Yeah.
starts getting a bit tricky to make sure I'm going to be in a
Yeah,
place
it
at the
puts
right time.
a real pressure on you, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. But 6 weeks, 2 months is fine. Unfortunately, I'll then have to air freight again because of the China problem. I'm going to air freight from South Korea to Thailand as well.
Right. Is that because you can't enter Thailand from China, but you can't ride across?
Just because China's awkward, and you need to have a guide with you in China, so it ends up being really expensive. So I wanted to get a ferry from South Korea to China,
Yeah.
and then drive across to Mongolia, cross Mongolia, and then drive a bit more China from between Mongolia and Kazakhstan. But it was going to be $10,000. I was quoted to have a guide with me for that. So
Easy, isn't it?
it's just two tiny bits, but
They really don't want you there, do they?
they really don't. So
They're pricing themselves out of the market on purpose.
absolutely, dear me. So I'll air freight from South Korea to Thailand and spend a bit of time in Southeast Asia there, Thailand, Laos, Cambodia, driving around
Yeah, beautiful.
before finally I enter China in April on a small guided tour from the Laos border through China to Tajikistan.
Oh, great. Oh, so you will be on you still got to have a tour guide with you.
Yeah.
Are they in a vehicle or riding along?
Well,
How does that work?
it's a small tour with, I think, is a minimum 6 motorcyclists. It might be 8 motorcyclists,
Right.
and then there's a support vehicle with you as well.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, it's a 3-week tour, and they only do it once a year. So I don't want to go on tours. I want to do it all by myself.
Of course you do, yeah.
But if you're by yourself and you pay for a guide, then the price is crazy. If you're in a tour with the guide in China, then the cost is manageable. It's still expensive, but not $10,000, £10,000.
Yeah.
That's
And
way out.
you will be able to tell your grandchildren, I rode through China.
There we go. The tour goes to Everest Base Camp on the China side as well.
Oh,
Mind-blowingly, this totally caught me out. I didn't first. I hadn't even thought that. Obviously, there's a base camp on both sides of
yeah.
Everest,
Yeah.
but I hadn't even thought that.
Yeah.
So there's one in China, and you can drive almost all the way up to it on the China side. So
Probably got a highway now, 6-lane highway, not in China.
Probably, yeah. So yeah, that will be quite epic.
That's amazing.
The trip, it'll be amazing.
Fabulous. Yeah. The time
It-
I rode up Everest. That'll be
It's tricky. Sometimes people say, like, "Oh, which bits are you really looking forward to on your trip?" Like all of it. It's
Yeah.
very tricky to pick out certain bits, but I think that part will be quite special.
I think it will. And another special thing about riding and traveling in general is that the bits that you didn't expect to be a standout moment will be.
Right. Yeah, sure.
Plan ahead, and sometimes you get so focused on, this will be amazing, that you are psychologically let down by it because you build it up so much. Other things you think, I'll just get through, Peru, for example, or Bolivia,
Yeah.
whatever. And then
For
you
sure.
find this absolutely astonishing part of your journey that you thought, didn't know what to expect there, but it was amazing.
That's absolutely true. Just 1 week ago, I had just come down from. I said I went to the lake in the mountains
Yeah.
on that track on the side of the cliff, and then the next or 2 days later, I drove back down to there through the clouds, and I came onto this road that was going through this beautiful green. Well, it was I guess there was some kind of ravine or gorge with enormous mountains either side, but it was all green, a river beside me. I just couldn't stop smiling. I
Yeah.
was just on just cloud nine. I just felt I talking about mental health. I was on top of the world that day. And it was not planned. It was on my route from there to carrying on to Lima as I am now. But that was absolutely beautiful, and I had no idea. But it was one of my best days of the 2 months drive. It was great.
Look at my smile, because no, your enthusiasm is making me smile as well, because you're absolutely
Oh, I'm
right.
glad. I'm glad.
Honestly, it's wonderful to. We've all done that. When I was talking earlier about, that just that feeling of well-being when you're out on your bike, whether you're listening to music or not. That's I do that. I ride along smiling.
Yeah, yeah,
It's like don't even know you're smiling because you're happy. It's great. So
totally, really, great feeling.
so we've covered quite. I mean, we're at the 2 hour point. Are you all right for time?
Oh my word. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
sure,
two
sure.
hours. Yeah. These podcasts, from my experience of talking to people, depending on who and where and why and what they're doing, can vary. But it's sort of they organically get to this point where I don't know why it's always about the 2 hour point where you've done what they're doing, and then you start looking at what's ahead. So
Right, right.
you mentioned to me when we met a few days ago that when you've done the North America, or so to say, USA, and then through Canada, up into Alaska, back down into Canada to the Pacific coast, where you're going to ship your bike across to Japan, and then you're going to ride in Japan. Are you doing it to Tokyo, to Osaka? I'm just wondering what the port.
No, it'll be to Tokyo. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it'll be air freight to Tokyo there. Yeah, and then I'll spend about a month in Japan.
Oh, wonderful! Wow,
Yeah.
that's got to be something to look forward to.
Oh dear me. Yeah, I've been to Japan a couple of times,
Yeah,
but again, the drive around on my bike is going to be really really special. Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, partly driving through Tokyo. I love cities, so as well as the countryside.
Sensing a
So to
but.
drive,
Is there a but?
no, 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 there's no but. To
Okay,
drive through the
great.
city is going to be beautiful.
Yeah,
I guess it's kind of a but then the countryside as well is
yeah,
epic in Japan. I can't wait for that either.
yeah. I think so
Oh,
many
too
people
much.
I speak to have said, "Oh yeah, I love Japan." Well, where did you go? Tokyo. Oh, okay.
Right.
That's
Okay.
like when people refer to England as London, and they say,
Yes.
"Oh, where are you from?" "Oh, I'm from the UK." "Oh, God, I love London." They're like, "Well, I'm
Yeah.
actually from London. I go there
That's
every few months, but I'm actually from there." "Ah, I thought it was London." And people think that
no. It's
okay about Japan.
Japan. Japan's an amazing country. Yeah, for sure. As I said, I've been a couple of times before, and been outside Tokyo and gone to some other cities, but to really get out into the countryside and it's yeah, and that's specifically why I wanted to spend about a month there. I think it's
Yes,
important to. Yeah.
yeah, brilliant. Then what? What happens from Japan? Japan being a series of islands, I guess.
Mm.
Is it
Yeah, so there'll be a couple of spot. Well, I think mostly there are bridges between places, but it'd be fun to go on a ferry or two. And I will go on a ferry to South Korea
Yes, yeah, I guess that's
from
what.
the southwest corner of Japan. Um, then there's a ferry to South Korea to Busan, the city in the south,
Yeah,
and then again I'll spend I don't know, a few weeks. I guess I will have to book my air freight from Korea to Thailand at some point. So I'll spend about three weeks maybe in South Korea before I head to Thailand. This is where the climate comes in, because I will, if I'm in Japan in September-ish and South Korea in October, then it's getting pretty cold there.
Yeah.
So I'll have to leave the end of October roughly before it gets too different.
Yeah.
And then I'll get to Thailand. And then so I'll be in Thailand in roughly, say, the beginning of November. But my tour across China doesn't start till middle end of April.
Oh, okay.
So I've got 3.5 months to drive a very small bit from Bangkok to Laos.
Yeah.
Obviously, I don't need 3.5 months for that. So that's going to be the most free part of the trip, I suppose. I said that on most of the trip, I'm I take it as it comes, and if there's somewhere I want to go, then I will. But there's always a kind of thing in the back of my mind. Yeah, but I still have to keep the progress going to a certain extent. I can go on a bit of a detour, but don't forget.
Yeah.
Whereas for 3.5 months, I'll be in Thailand, Cambodia, Laos with so much time to explore those three countries.
Yeah.
I going to Vietnam is tricky with your own bike, so I don't think I'm
going
going
to say,
to.
but you can rent relatively easily. You might be able
Yeah, I feel like I'd be cheating on my V-Strom if I rented another bike.
Interesting.
So
that you more than a mechanical relationship with that bike. Honestly, I could feel it. I could sense it.
You can't. Sometimes other people have said to me when I've been telling them about my trip, they said, so you'll sell your bike in Canada and then buy a new one in Japan. No. What are you? It has to be one bike for sure. It has to be one bike. And again, I've been to Vietnam a few times, so that's not a priority. I think I'll stick to my bike around there and really explore. I've got a couple of friends in Bangkok as well who are going to join me for some trips here and there as well, which would be
I love Bangkok. Absolutely love Bangkok.
Yeah, great place. And I've been to Thailand before, but I've only a couple of places. So I've not been to the north, which is a really popular place to go. So I'm very excited to explore those parts on the bike.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'm going to say it sounds a long time, but actually, when you've got your bike and you're up somewhere for 3 days and spend a couple of days there and back, you're a couple of weeks gone, and and relatively inexpensive place to be stuck for a while as well.
Mm-hmm. Yes, not the word
for 3.5 months, would you? You'd be back.
No, absolutely.
Fab. So, what's the trip you got? Let's get to the end of, because you're going to come back on a podcast hopefully at some point and tell us.
Oh, I'd love to.
I'd love you to, because you've got, we're not going anywhere, and you're going to be here in 18 months' time saying, "Oh wow, I'm coming towards the end of my journey and these adventures I've had." We'd love to
tell you.
Yeah.
Tell you about the times when my bike did break down on the side of the road.
Let's hope. Interesting. A quick question. You bought the Suzuki for all the right reasons. You said you'd driven to Kazakhstan and back.
Yeah.
Japanese vehicle, Japanese car by any chance?
How did you guess? I
watched your YouTube video.
I drove. That was a Toyota RAV4 that I took.
Oh wow!
To Kazakhstan. That was before I could. That's when I lived in Kazakhstan.
Yeah.
And I really wanted to have my own vehicle in Kazakhstan, but for strange reasons, the second-hand car market is incredibly expensive in Kazakhstan.
Turkey.
Oh, really? Right. So it was sort of like a third of the price to buy. Not even I bought my little Toyota RAV4 for £1,000.
Right.
And if I'd bought it in Kazakhstan, I seem to remember it would have been 6,000 or 7,000.
Oh, that's cheap compared to Turkey.
Oh, really? Well,
Yeah. But yeah, I know what you mean. The import taxes on new vehicles are astronomical, and therefore the second-hand market of cars is
is all
crazy.
right, right.
Yeah,
So I just bought this just for £1,000, and then yeah, drove it in my summer holiday to Kazakhstan through Turkey, of course.
yeah,
Um, and then had a year living in. That was my fourth year in Kazakhstan, and I went on loads of trips around Kazakhstan with that. That was amazing, really, really wonderful.
and did you?
So I'm excited.
Sorry.
Sorry, I was going to say. So I'm excited to return back to not just Kazakhstan, the whole of Central Asia as well.
Yeah,
After the China leg, then I'll arrive in Tajikistan and I'll have a bit of time to spend in Central Asia. Yeah, I've not been back for 6 years since I left, so that's going to be wonderful.
yeah, that's really exciting. Fantastic part of the world, and
Oh yeah,
so
wonderful.
lovely people. You know,
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm sure that you're looking forward. I can imagine you're looking forward to that. And it is interesting that you
Yeah.
had a Japanese vehicle. Then there's obviously a bit of that going off with you. That Japanese, you know,
Well,
reliability
but
is second to
when you
none, let's be honest.
when you look up reliable vehicles, then yeah, that's it. And that Toyota RAV4. Um, I know this is a motorcycle podcast, but nothing went wrong with that. It was
Really?
just
Wow.
totally perfect. And then yeah, it only started going a little bit wrong when I had a little crash in Kazakhstan. But that's for another. That's
That
for
was
another
your
story.
fault. Well, not your fault, but it was the fault of a mechanical collision, not the car.
Anyway, yeah, exactly. No, no, absolutely.
Yeah. I actually drove one of those for the first time in 2001 in the Bahamas. Um,
All right.
so at that time, my wife worked in the Bahamas, and so we were over there in Nassau. And a friend, I was going to rent a car, and a friend said, "Don't rent a car, use mine because I'm going to the States for a few weeks, which is like
Perfect.
a 30-minute, 50-mile flight to Miami. Just use my car." Um, and the insurance was similar to in the States where anyone can ride. You don't have to have insurance. Anyone can drive the car as long as you've got a letter of permission, which she gave.
Uh-huh.
And
Easy.
oh yeah, amazing car. And I remember, I mean, it's 20 odd years ago, but at that time, it was the original rounded shaped one. Um,
Hmm.
become they've become a huge SUV now, aren't they? The RAV4. It's a big,
Not the same.
no, it's a big luxury car. It's not a simple 4x4 anymore.
No, 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 no.
But
The
that
the the one I bought that in 2017, and I think it was 13 years old. It was a 2004 model. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, and no problems with it. Says everything.
No, absolutely not. Yeah, yeah, absolutely, yeah. And my Suzuki V-Strom, perfect.
Yeah, I can see. So through the as people often in the adventure biking world refer to Central Asia as the stands, but
Yeah.
I hear that, and I'm not sure about that. But yeah, um, so Tajikistan, Kazakhstan, um, I'm trying.
Yeah, it's tricky because, as you alluded to earlier, I'm not going to have so much time on my trip by then, unfortunately,
Yeah, that's what
because
I'm coming to. Yeah,
yeah, my trip finishes. So the China, it's all about that China thing.
yeah,
Finishes the end of May, roughly the 20th or something.
right.
And then, being a teacher, I'm gonna need to have another job one day because money's not forever
It's not
that I've
infinite.
saved that I've saved up. Yeah, so I will probably have until the end of July, roughly. So that's only 2 months then to drive back the whole of Central Asia, the stands, all the way through Europe to the UK.
Yeah,
And I don't want to race through it, but it's
no,
going to be tricky because I'd love to spend some time. Um, I've been to all those stands. Having lived in Kazakhstan, I've been to Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, and Turkmenistan. But I've not been to the Pamirs,
right.
which is a motorcycle mecca, isn't it?
Yes.
And so I'd love to have some time to drive through there, but I also love to have some time to drive around the mountains in Kyrgyzstan because they're beautiful. I'd love to have some time to visit lots of friends in Kazakhstan as well. So then suddenly I'm running out of time a little bit.
Yeah.
I'll have to manage that particularly carefully to make sure that I've still got time. And also, then I've got the little issue with how do I get from the stands to Europe? Because at the moment, when I drove there in my car, I crossed the Caspian Sea from Azerbaijan
Yeah.
to Kazakhstan on that 24-hour ferry.
Yeah. Yeah.
But at the moment, Azerbaijan is closed by land and sea because of COVID. At least officially, it's because of COVID. So either I drive through Russia from Kazakhstan around the top of the Caspian Sea into Georgia,
Yeah. Yeah.
or I have just recently heard about another option where you officially well, I guess you freight your bike, you ship your bike officially,
Yes.
and then you might be on the same ferry as it, but officially you're not
Yeah. Yeah. Not you're not
with it.
with it. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh no, I can't go on the ferry, can I? So I'd have to fly. I would have to fly from
Okay.
Kazakhstan to Azerbaijan. So that might be another way, but I don't know yet. I've done a huge amount of research, but I'll have to revisit it in another year's time
Well,
because
who knows with
who
the
knows what might change
situation in in Syria and
in many countries.
yeah, let's
Who
just pray that stabilizes to a degree, not just for you, although of course I hope it does.
knows? No, for sure.
For people that
There's
bless them.
there's more pressing issues than me. Yes.
Yeah,
I will work it out. I
yeah,
will
of
work
course
it
you
out,
will.
whatever is happening.
Of course you
But
will.
if there was, yeah, I'll just have to see. I'll just have to see. There's a couple of options. I don't feel so nervous about driving through Russia. Lots of other people have done it,
Yeah,
and I think that would be fine. But in a way, it's more straightforward getting the ferry across. We'll just have to see.
like everywhere else. You mentioned right at the beginning of this podcast that people were afraid of the risks of riding in South America and in Central America.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
actually, in reality, it's no different to anywhere else. The same in Russia.
absolutely.
Everybody I know, I've got
Yeah,
a
yeah.
very, very, very close friend. One I would suggest is my best friend, who spent a lot of time in Russia and said they are the nicest people you would
Of
ever,
course, of course, of
just
course.
like everywhere else you go.
Yeah,
That's the benefit
of
of,
course.
you can't be a racist if you're right, if you travel. That's how I always say to people, oh, I see you at any, sort of, they've got any isms in them at all. Just travel. Just go and meet people and you'll see.
Yeah, yeah. It's a wonderful thing.
We're all the same. We just want to go to work or, spend as little time with work as possible, spend time with our family, feed them, and just have a good time and be safe and provide for them. That's all we want.
Yeah,
Isn't it? That's all
yeah,
we want,
sure,
really,
sure.
everywhere in the world. And
And therefore, I'm not. I think it will be fine, but yeah, we'll just have to see.
of course it will.
What can change in the next year? Crikey.
Well, we'll find out when you come back.
Yes, I'll let you know. There we go.
Yeah, the further adventures of. Let's see.
Oh yes, part 2, dear me.
So when you come from, however you're going to get into Europe, would that involve probably riding through Turkey and then into, or
Oh no, yeah, no doubt it'll include Turkey for
yeah,
sure.
either from
Because
Georgia?
I'd come through Georgia no matter what.
Yeah, yeah.
And then through Turkey, and then that last bit.
It's going to be
There's so many.
fast
There's
thing.
so many places I'd like to visit in Europe still. So yeah, I can't quite tell where I'm going to go when I get that far.
No.
Yeah. It might be just a race for the last 2 weeks then, unfortunately.
Yeah. I mean, from my experience, the two most popular routes up or down through Turkey is either to ride through Istanbul and then through into either Greece or through into what's it called? Completely gone out of my mind for some reason.
So Bulgaria's there,
Bulgaria, yeah, or
um,
people sometimes get the ferry into Greece,
ah,
Western,
the main, the
and then go
mainland of
through
Greece.
Greece. Yeah, the two.
Right.
I don't know which. What did you do when you drove that journey? Did you go through?
I came down through Montenegro to Thessaloniki in Greece, and then came along the coast there to Istanbul,
Yeah,
and then yeah.
right. Yeah. So maybe familiarity might lead you in that direction. Who knows? It might be about the time.
No,
No, opposite.
familiarity would drive me away.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, that's what I wanted to hear. Imagine you saying, yeah, definitely, I like that. Because I've only done, you know, I don't know, how many kilometers is it going to take you roughly? Within,
I'd say 45,000 maybe in total.
is,
45,000.
I
Yeah.
hope you are heartened by the fact that there will probably be, I would say, 80% of motorcyclists never ride that far in all their life. From passing the
Oh my, right. I
17,
see.
passing the test at 17 to deciding to, move on to a trike or a car in the real
Right, right.
world. I bet there's very few people ridden that far.
Well, I've already done 55,000 on my one bike.
Amazing.
Because I did one big trip to Patagonia, one big trip to the Atacama Desert, um, in holidays, and then lots of big trips. Brazil being quite big, to often to get to somewhere interesting, you really have to drive quite a long way. The highways are pretty good, so there'd be some long highway drives to get to somewhere, really quite interesting. So yeah, I've already done 55,000, which I guess is quite a lot in 5 years. Yeah.
It is. I mean, I complain when I drive down to Gatwick from Yorkshire, from where I live.
Mm.
And then when I come home and I say to my wife, oh, I'm absolutely exhausted. I've been in a car. It's got lane assist and variable cruise control. and
No, no, no.
and it's like 220 miles there and then the back. So it's four. I said, I've done nearly 500 miles in a day and I'm absolutely exhausted. Put kettle on, you know.
Yeah.
So riding it,
Living
my goodness.
living in three enormous countries, having lived in China, Kazakhstan, and Brazil, you get a entirely new perspective on scale and journey length. So to me, it's interesting when I do return to the UK now, and someone says, last time I was in the UK, I did drive to Yorkshire actually
Oh, did you?
for for
Bless.
for a wedding, and I looked up on Google Maps, and it said it's, I can't remember what it said now, 3.5 hours. Oh, that's nothing, I thought. Whereas when I used to live in the UK 15 years ago, 3 hours. Oh,
Hours.
oh dear me.
Oh, I don't know about that.
Whereas now, yeah, I drove in Brazil, um, to Brasilia from Sao Paulo. That was, I can't remember how many hours drive that was, 12 or 14 hours in a day. And I was thinking that's quite a lot, but Brazilians, yeah, whatever.
It's interesting when you talk about time and distance, and how people have a different perspective of it. So we're very, very lucky to have a holiday home in Turkey, actually, and we've had it for
Mm-hmm.
20 years or more. And people sometimes said, "Ooh, it's a bit dangerous, isn't it next to Syria?" And I said,
Right,
I'd just like to put
right.
into perspective that to drive the
Yeah,
distance from my house to the Syrian border is the same as it is from here to Berlin.
right,
Now, if you
right.
had some trouble
There
in
we go.
Berlin, would you say, "Oh, don't go to Yorkshire"? You,
No, no, quite,
you know,
quite.
just so there's that part of it, and on the other side of it is riding and driving in Southeast Asia with the traffic. I know people that live, their home is about 15 miles away from where they work, and they
Hmm.
stay over all week.
Right.
because you
Yeah,
can't possibly drive 15 miles to work and back
absolutely. No
because it'll
way.
take you six
No way.
hours each way
Yeah, yeah,
with traffic. You know, so there's that side of it as well. It's all about where you are.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah. Very, very confusing sometimes.
Yeah, definitely. So we're coming up to the 2.5 hour point.
No way.
I
It's
know.
flown by.
Oh,
I
it
had
does.
no idea.
It's crazy, isn't it? And it's been amazing talking to you. And we're getting to the point where you're going to be heading through Europe. What can we say about that? We don't know what the route is. You're going to get back into the UK, either by tunnel or ferry, I guess.
Oh, ferry. No, ferry. I like that ferry. I've done the ferry so many times, and
Have you?
I love it. Love it.
Yeah, bit of fresh air. Your first blast of what time of year do you say? July.
Oh, it'll be July by then. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so
It'll be
you'll be back
beautiful.
into the sun and the rain and the snow of an English summer.
Oh. Oh joy. Yeah, maybe I'll do a 3-year trip instead. Okay.
Well, it'll just be the same the following year, the following June.
Yeah, yeah.
So don't get too excited. Oh, fabulous. Um, so would you like to, before we go, would you like to tell people a little bit about your channel? And so, I will
Oh
put,
yeah.
if you send me the links, Henry,
Mm-mm.
definitely put them on there. Maybe you could do the same for us so people can say,
Oh, of course.
look at this. I have recently appeared on a podcast.
Yeah, yeah.
We'll do the same for you so people can start to follow your journey.
Yeah. I, I said earlier about going on lots of trips before, and I it just became with friends that I was always saying about this little trip that I'm going on. I'm just going on another little trip, and they, oh yeah, yeah, sure. Where are you going next? Oh, I'm just going to drive to Kazakhstan, and saying another little trip just felt like that's what I'm always doing. I'm just going on another little trip. So that's what my YouTube channel is called, Another Little Trip.
Another little trip, right?
And I'm just going on another little trip,
Right.
um, even if it's 2 years driving around the world. So that's what my YouTube is and my Instagram as well. And yeah, I've only just started. I've done 5 episodes so far, and some people have commented that they they feel like I'm there with them when I'm on my videos, and I don't know whether it's because I'm a primary school teacher and the way I talk is quite I don't know, kind of brings you in. I'm quite used to telling stories to my kids in my class. Of course, I teach 6 and 7-year-olds usually, so
Okay.
maybe my easy manner, the way I tell stories to them, I don't know whether it translates across, but hopefully, as other people have commented, then my videos kind of make you feel like you're there as well,
Yeah,
which
that's how
sounds
I think.
quite a nice thing.
Very enjoyable, very engaging. So yeah, absolutely.
Right, right. I'm glad. I'm glad. Yeah. So if you're interested in seeing where my journey goes, then
Yeah,
uh,
sure.
come and see the videos.
Wonderful. So yeah, please guys, have a look at Henry's channel, Another Little Trip. And please follow him and subscribe. It'd be lovely to be able to be reminded of when his next episode comes up. And it'd be nice, when we do these podcasts to to subscribe and like this podcast channel, the British
For
Motorcycling Group
sure.
podcast, and then be able to look at the people that we have spoken with and follow their journey, because many of the people that we're going to speak to and that we've already spoke to are actually doing their journey now. And so you'd have that to look forward to. And it's great to be able to have that context between what they're doing and what you heard about what they've done. I think that allows you to to build a relationship with that person. So that would be great. Yeah, fantastic. So, Henry, we're going to leave you to that 20-degree t-shirt weather.
I think it
I'm
might have
just
gone up to 23 or 24 now, I'm
Oh,
afraid.
really? Well, I can see, and I wish I could show you. I'm sure if I'm technically able enough to. It now says 1 degree
Right.
cloudy. So there's a little picture of a cloud. It says 1 degree and cloudy here in sunny Yorkshire in England.
You enjoy, Ian.
Thank you. Well, I have got central heating, thank goodness, because
Okay, right.
I were going to wear this, so it felt a bit like summery to fit in with you.
But you've got your thermal vest underneath.
Well, I've
right?
got a thermal.
Yeah.
This is actually a one of those undergarment
Oh, there we go.
when you're
Right.
riding your bike. Just to say,
And your central heating, you'll just be all right. You'll
yeah.
just be all right.
Henry, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
Pleasure, Ian. Thanks so much. Great to chat.
And you, yeah. If there's anything else you'd like, anybody you'd like to say anything to, say hello to, or anything, then
Oh,
feel free.
to all my fans, my mum.
Yeah, well, definitely. Got to thank your mum. Yeah, fabulous. All right, Henry. Thank you again. Great.
Pleasure, Ian. Thanks so
Please
much.
come back and tell us about how the rest of the journey went.
Oh, that'd be a pleasure. That'd be great too.
Yeah, it'd be amazing that actually. And we'll see you on that next journey. And I'm now looking down to find out where the stop recording button is, so we don't carry on for another hour.
3 or 4 hours.
Yeah. Thank you. So again, great to see you. Stay safe. Keep in touch.
Cheers, Ian.
And
Thanks
when
so
you're
much.
back in the UK, give us a shout and we can.
Will do, yeah. And good luck with the podcast.
Thank you. Thanks very much. And thanks again.
Cheers.
Thanks for coming on here. All the best.
Thanks very much. Cheers. Bye-bye.